Welcome to this video that will hopefully help students who need assistance with the Chapter 6 JavaJam case study. As you can see on the screen, if you are a highly visual learner, pages 260 to 263. One thing students need to understand, not only about this class, but any other online class that is offered at CCC, there is an obligation and a responsibility to be able to do a lot of reading and following directions. Online students typically do not have the advantage of having a person standing in front of them explaining information where you can interact and ask questions, and therefore the online student who sometimes perceives a class as being easier because they can stay at home and not come to school and not use gasoline, they don't necessarily commit or understand the obligation to read, to study, to communicate, and I want to make sure you accept that responsibility. Furthermore, I'm not doing the entire case study for you, so this is not one of those watch this and write everything down scenarios, but I will do a good bit with you to help you out because this concept of CSS can be very difficult. But note that this is only a guide. The first thing you need to do is to get, sorry for all the pop-ups that come up, this is just Windows 7 and Windows 8 battling each other during the video, and I apologize for that immediately. But one thing you want to do right off the bat is to get your Chapter 4 folder, unzip that so you'll have all the files that you need in front of you before watching the video. It will make your life much easier. Now again, having said that, and I'm going to load a picture in here just for review purposes for those maybe who did not watch the first video. This is the general wireframe that is associated with this project. What we're going to do is just use this two-column layout where we have, as I said in the previous video, where you have the header, JavaJam, formatted in a particular way. The navigation links, instead of being in the center, are now going to be on the side, like in Blackboard. The content will be over to the right of those navigation links with a picture that will automatically float to the right by itself. And then we'll have the footer, which has the mail and email information, address, and all that at the bottom. And this will all be surrounded by a class called wrapper, or rather a division called wrapper. So think of just a bunch of divs and a bunch of classes. Remember, just so you know this, if they use the word class in this discussion, they're talking about something beginning with a period. If they use the word ID, they're talking about something beginning with a pound symbol. And I'll try to refresh some of this for you as we go through this video. So again, the look we're trying to get, and pardon my messy screen, I apologize for this immediately up front. The look we're trying to get for these particular pages is to have a screen. I'll see if I can zoom this a little bit bigger for you. There we go. We want to have a screen eventually, or a page where the index page, for instance, has the header across the top, the navigation bar over to the side, and you notice these little background colors that sort of divide each of these little sections in the wireframe from each other. The content is slightly shifted over. That's a bulleted list. We're not really changing the content itself. We're just changing the way it's positioned or the layout of it. And that's the beauty of Cascade style sheets or CSS sheets, is that you can take the elements meaning the heading, JavaJam Copy House, the picture, the email address, the navigation links, and all this, and you can just use the CSS to make all kinds of rearrangements. It makes designing web pages much more efficient and much more quickly done. So having said that, and you're seeing my messy desktop right now, apologies for that, I'm taking my Chapter 4 model. Now you may not have, if you're an exact words kind of student, you may not see the word Chapter 4 model on your sheets. That's just for me where video is concerned. But this is the CSS file right here. This is the one we're going to be spending the most time on right through here. The index page. And you'll notice that through this little blue, the little blue highlighting right here, there's very little changing that you'll be making in this index page. There's the code for the menu page that has the various coffees that are offered at JavaJam. And then the music page that you did back in Chapter 4, hopefully, where you have the name of the artist for January and for February. And this is just the code that you'll use. I wanted to give you a correct solution in order to make the transition from Chapter 4 to Chapter 6 just a little bit easier for you. All right, And we'll start with this right now. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and erase this so I have a clean screen. And if you'll follow along with me on page 261, again, I do the best I can, but some people are extraordinarily visual and not good listeners and good readers by their own choices oftentimes. But I'm starting now with page 261. And if you'll follow along with the directions, I'll do the best I can to at least guide you through this case study. Again, I'm not doing it for you, but I will give you a good start with it if you'll bear with me. And thank you for your patience ahead of time as I'm creating this video for you. All right, the first thing it says to do in task 1 is to create a folder called JavaJam 6, and you can do it with whatever name you want to in task number 1. You basically just want to make sure that at the end of this assignment that your CSS file and your index and menu and music files are all in there, and we're going to implement this 2-column page layout that I showed you in the wireframe. Task 2 is the one that's going to be the most involved in this assignment, and that's one you want to watch. In a lot of cases, the author of the book, Felty Morris, has basically laid this out for you, but I'll try to help you where I can. In step 1, for instance, they're asking you to, task 2, step 1, it says configure the header area, and we'll do that by creating a new ID named header. And if you notice in the information, really the order in which this appears in the CSS file doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to make some space right here. It said to use an ID. Now remember again that ID, I'll say, oops, thank you for being patient. ID means it's going to start with a pound symbol, so it says create an ID called header. So I'm going to put header right here, and that's the ID right there. It's called header, and it tells you exactly what to do. To give a background, a text color, center alignment, and no margins. So basically what I'm going to do is put this in braces and just copy it down. It said background color, and it gives the code CCAA66. So if I write that down, I hope you can read my left-handed writing. I'm going to write background color, and thank you very much. I'm having to pause slightly. I can't talk. The background color is going to, I'm sorry I was interrupted in the middle of the video by one of my personnel. That's okay. Thank you for your patience. The background color is going to be CCAA66, and you put that little pound symbol again. It's just part of the coding for colors in the web. So that's the background color right there. It says to give it a text color. You don't actually write the word text color, but you'll put color right there, and you'll put the name of the color. I'm not going to do all the little details. Like I said, I'm not doing the entire assignment for you. It says text align to center, and that's literally like this, text align, colon, center. And it says the margin, it says no margin. In fact, it tells you to put margin 0. And I do that with a colon. So that's your header situation. Now that's going to apply later on in your main pages to the H1 selector. Now it says in step 1 on page 261 to remove the H1 element selector and style rules. So basically you're going to take the H1 definition, that's right down here, and hopefully you can see this. You're basically going to take this and you're going to remove that. So I'm just going to take this just for visual purposes, and we're going to erase this part right here. So you'll have to do that on your own code. I'm doing this again in the video just for illustration purposes. All right, that's step 1. Step 2 is to configure the left column navigation area. And you might be saying, what in the world is the left column navigation area? Again, let me give you the guideline once again to let you see this. The left column navigation area on your page, that's where you have the links that have home and index and menu and index, menu, music, and forms. That's the area we're going to do. We're going to make that line up to the left, and we're going to put some special, if you did the worksheet, you know that links can turn different colors when you hover over them or when you click them. They may start out, for instance, being a blue color. They may have underlines, they may not. You might want them to be purple after they're clicked, and that's basically what we're doing in step number 2. So we'll have several codes that we'll be writing for the navigation links. And I'll make some space right here to do that. Again, the order that you do this, if you want to do it in the same order that Mike Sis does, that's okay. You don't have to. That's totally up to you as to how you do it. So I'm going to make some space here so this will be visual for you. Again, step 2. It says navigation ID. And I'm going to configure an area that floats to the left, is 100 pixels wide, displays its centered text, and has 10 pixels of padding on top. So even though I allowed space for that, I'm going to scoot this back up here. I'm just going to add to the navigation, I'm going to add to the navigation link that I already have set up. So here's my navigation link right here, and again, I'm going to separate this as much as I can. I sometimes sound like I'm picking on the visual learner. I don't mean to, but I want to make sure because the majority of people now are visual learners, and I want to make sure that picture is there. So it says to leave the text aligned just like it is, we're going to add a rule to configure an area that floats to the left. And it's pretty straightforward. If you want something to float to the left, you type the word float, and this is in your book, and you choose the word left. So there we go there. All right. It says that's 100 pixels wide. That's the width code. And you just write 100 px. You probably need to put the 100 and the px up against each other, and don't be English major-like and put the spacing there, because code's a little bit different from English majoring. And I say that with German's background. It says to display centered text. Centered text is already taken care of right here. So there's your centered text already in place. And has 10 pixels of padding on the top. And if you remember my rule for padding, I probably should have left it the same color, but that's okay. If I want to do something specific with padding, top left, bottom right, I just put padding hyphen top. And that's a hyphen, not an underline. I don't want you to get mixed up with that. And I jumped on this too early. And I want to put a colon there and put 10px. And that's all inside the little curly braces. So that will take care of this specific navigation area. So I hope this is helping you in getting started. Now, in step 3, basically it says to configure the navigation hyperlinks, and it says to use contextual selectors. Basically what a contextual selector is when you're taking an element that already exists in the language. Nav is something we made up, or that the book made up. But H1, H2, H3, E for paragraph, block point, all that stuff, all those words are standard HTML element vocabulary, for lack of a better word. Now what we're going to do in this case is we're going to go in and we're going to be very specific on defining the hyperlink definition. And this is step 3 on page 261. They basically have this already set up for you. So basically all you have to do is copy step 3. Copy that information from step 3 right there, where the text decoration is none. That means it takes the underline that you usually see for a hyperlink out of there. And you have 15 pixels of bottom padding on there. So basically you're just copying the step 3 section. Now we're going to continue with the navigation link. I'm trying to find my cursor here. When I switch from ink to standard insertion points with the mouse, it goes a little crazy. Alright, I'm going to configure the specific parts of the anchor hyperlink, and if you did the worksheets, you understand these words already. So you're going to have several statements right here. I'll make them in different colors if I can do this to help you out. So I'm going to have one that's called nav, and again, this is step number 4 in your book. And I've given an example for you. So if I want to do nav a colon link, what the link's going to look like when it's initially there, it says we want the unvisited link, when you first look at the page, to be color $996633. So I do that by putting, and again, you can put it under it, you can put it beside of it, whatever you want to do, is whatever's easier for you. So I put color, colon, and I hope I'm doing this right for you. Forgive me if I make some tiny mistakes. I'll be the one that bears the brunt of that if I need to. Okay, it really doesn't matter whether these braces and stuff go under each other, side by side, as long as it's all there. There's your link color as it stands right now. And if you look at step 4, it says to use CCAA66 for a visited hyperlink. So basically what you're going to do right here is you're going to write basically the same thing, nav, a, colon, and the word visited. And it's going to be very similar. You'll just put the color in there, whatever the color says in the book to use. You'll do the very same thing for the word hover. Same situation. You're just telling the computer through this CSS code. I know it seems real complex and a lot of people don't like to program, but that's part of what the power is when you're dealing with web pages. When you want them very customized, you need to know these definitions in CSS, or at least be able to refer to them. So you're going to have all the navs right there. So there's a lot of business going on right here with the nav definition. And that takes us through step number 4. It's just a matter of reading these definitions very carefully. Now, we're also going to go to something a little further with the navs. If you remember in the book, it was suggested that when you have navigation with CSS, you want to be sure that it's best recommended that you use this as an unordered list. Usually that's the list that you see with bulleted items, except we won't have the bulleted items this time. So in step 5, we want to have it so it doesn't show any list markers. In other words, what's going to happen in step 5, the instructions are requesting, and I'll see if I can make a visual illustration here for you for step 5. I'm going to go ahead and insert this index page one more time so you can take a look at it. If you can see this up close, I'm not sure if you can. I'll try to make this a little bit bigger for you to see and hope that this works for you. What we're going to do in this layout is we want to have this navigation list to look, let me pull this over a little bit, we want it to look like a bulleted list, but you'll notice right here in this illustration that I don't want to have any bullets right here. I don't want to have any bullets, any squares, anything like that, but I still want it to be an unordered list. So in order to make that definition, the directions are asking you to literally copy what it says on step 5, and that would be a definition that says one more nav, and this is to make it an unordered list. Just copy the one that's in the book, and it says to do list style type none. In other words, you don't want anything in front of the list, no round circles for bullets, no numbered list or anything like that. That's what's happening in step 5. I hope this is all making some sense to you so far. If not, you can always rewind the video, replay it, pause it if you need to write stuff down, or just ask questions. Message me if you need to. Step number 6, it says to modify the content ID style rules for the right column. Now there should be a content definition already in step number 4. Let's see if we can find it right here. There it is. I'm sorry for making you possibly dizzy right here. Here's the content ID right here. I'll see if I can isolate this for you. Again, these CSS definitions don't have to be in any particular order. As long as they're all in this particular page or this file, you're okay. And it says to change the padding to 10 pixels top, 30 pixels bottom, 20 pixels left, and 20 pixels right. Now, they've got these jumbled out of order. I mentioned this to you before, and right off the bat, I'm going to make this brace a little further so we have more stuff to write. Right now, we only have a 25 pixel worth of padding, but we want to do this at the top, left, bottom, and right. If you looked at my worksheets, I gave you a little memory mnemonic to help you out whenever you're wanting to remember the order in which stuff should land. Excuse me. And I'm going to write that down right here so you can see it. I remember the word trouble because it gives me all the consonants, all the beginning letters of the words for padding and margins and anything with the box model. The T stands for the word top. The R stands for the word right. The B stands for the word bottom. And the L stands for the word left. So when you're writing this stuff down in the content, it says now, instead of having this padding statement that we have now, we want to have these items. I want to have the padding this time, and I want to have 4 numbers right there. The first number has to be the top one. And what did it say? It said 10 pixels at the top. So I'm going to write 10px. And we'll just space from it. The next one should be the number for the right. And that's going to be 20 pixels if you're reading the directions in step number 6. I'm going to erase this because you know what's going on now. The next number is for bottom. So we're going to write the 30 right there. So that's going to be the 30px. And the last number will be the one for the left. And that one, it said would be, let's see, 10 pixels top, 30 bottom, 20 left, and 20 right. So again, remember the word trouble. Top is 10, right is 20, 30 for the bottom, 20 for the left. Think of the word trouble, and you'll get it in there the way you want it. It also asks for a left margin of 150 pixels. Now, normally if I'm typing in the word margin, I would also have 4 numbers for top and right and bottom and left. But because it only asks for the left margin, instead of writing on 4, I can do margin left. I could very well have listed padding left, padding right, padding bottom, padding top. But the 4 numbers right there just makes it short. The margin left, I think it said 150 pixels. Hopefully I'm right. Let me check this. And it asks for a background color and for a text color. You already know how to do that, but just to make sure you're secure with it, we write background dash color or minus symbol color. Put that in there. And then the text color, you don't have to write the word text. You just write the word color. And that takes care of your content section. It says in step 7, to configure an area that floats to the right. Because if you remember, if you looked at the picture earlier, the graphic or the picture with the winding road floats on the right side, so that way when the page is rendered or displayed on the screen, it'll automatically float the picture to the right. And it says to add 20 pixels of padding to the left side of this area. Alright, to get this float to the right, we're going to do an ID that we're not necessarily clear about that part, so I'll go ahead and tell you what's going on right there. We're going to create some things. If I can scoot up here a little bit to let you see it. Here we go. I'm going to do a class called float right. So there's a period right there. That's a class. It will be called float right, one word. And with any class, of course, we've got to open the little braces and close them. And we've got 2 pieces of information that we want in the, let's see, what step am I on now? Step 7. Alright? It says that it says this is configured with the float right class. Middle of instructions on number 7. Since it's a class, it's going to be a period rather than a pound symbol. Add 20 pixels of padding to the left, so hopefully you know this. So I'm going to do padding left. You just have to read these directions very meticulously. 20 pixels, 20px. And it says I'm going to automatically, of course, float it to the right. So I'm going to choose the word float, colon, right. Now here's the catch with floating. Once the picture has floated, any element that follows that is going to try to float right everything else in the on the page, all the other elements. So we'll have to eventually put something that might clear it out. We have to be careful about that. Okay, and in number 9, step 9, we're going to configure the link visited and hover pseudo classes. Those are the parts that go with the anchor link. When you hover over it, when you visit it, what colors change. We want to do this for the footer hyperlink. So I'm going to look at the footer hyperlink. I know there's one here. I hope I don't make you dizzy with all this. It's just having to float up and again give the visual as much as possible. Thank you again for your patience. There's the footer class right there. Let's get a little space here so that this is not going to be problematic for you. So if I go to the footer class, let's see what we're doing in step 9. We want to configure the footer class for the. So okay, this one is a little bit different right here. in that what we're going to have to do, I may have said this a little wrong and made you misunderstand here. I'm setting this up so that there's a footer hyperlink, and this may be confusing possibly here. Let me go back to the page. The footer hyperlink, you remember down here in the case study where we did the email address at the very bottom center? Hopefully you're seeing this on this display. We're going to configure that hyperlink. Remember, we've done this with home menu music and jobs earlier. We told the color when it shows up on the screen, the color after you click it, the color after it's been visited. We have to do the same thing for the footer hyperlink. So we're going to do something very similar to what we did earlier. And again, I hope I don't confuse you here. If you remember, we had to make some definitions for the navigation or the nav link. We had to configure some information for these guys right here that I'm circling in blue. We're going to do the same thing with the ones for the footer. So instead of having # nav A, we're going to have # footer. They're going to look very similar to these. So take a gander, as we say in the South, at these. And let's go down here and let's make some new ones. I'm going to make a new thing right here. And I don't want a new definition. I shouldn't say thing. So I'm going to have # footer. And I'm looking specifically within the footer at the hyperlink. So I'm going to have one for link. Again, step 9. One for link. One for visited. And one for hover. Hopefully you can read my writing. This is # footer, a colon, and we've got these 3. Link, visited, and hover. And we make the definitions for these. We're simply putting in the text colors for all 3 of these. So it's going to be very similar again to what I did up here with the nav ID. Those 3 right there. Very same situation. Now they're different colors. And all you have to do, of course, in here is just put the color definitions in there, whatever they happen to be. The first one in step 9 happens to be, let's see, for link. It happens to be, let's see, visited. I think they've actually made a mistake in the book for this. The link, they got unvisited one color, link the other. Anyway, you put the numbers there that you need to put. They're very similar all the way across, and I think you'll get the idea with that step. Step 10 in the CSS. Again, the CSS is the busy one, folks, but there's a lot of good payback when this is done properly. We now want to take the heading 2, the H2, and do some modification to it. Here's H2 right along here. You find it in your particular CSS page. And I'm going to get some spacing in here again so it's easy to read. Step 10 says to modify the style rules. We've already got some style rules for H2 from the previous case study exercise. Now what we're going to do, we're going to leave everything right here that's there before, background color, font size, and all that stuff. Here's what's going to happen. It literally tells you what to do. You're going to go in, and if you look at, again in step 10, if you look at step 10, and it tells you, if you look at the music page, this is the main page right here. I'll go in real fast and see if I can insert. Let me make this a little bit easier for me to work with, and thank you again for your patience as I create this stuff as I go along. And sometimes Windows 7 and Windows 8 compete with each other, and they don't play nicely on my computer, so sometimes you'll see all these crazy items that'll pop up. I'm going to show you the music page real fast, and I'll see if I can, within reason, I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this as much as I can. This may, because of the size, there may be a trade-off that I can't do in Microsoft Word to show this, but I'll do the best I can to zoom in on this for you and let you see it. What it's wanting you to do in step 10 is to notice the difference in the way the content is laid out with the header 2. The header 2 in the music page in case study number 4, we had the word January and February. They were in lowercase letters, and the background was a little different. There's a dark brown color behind January and February, but if you look at it in chapter 6's version, you will notice down here at the bottom, and I hope you can see this, you will notice that January is in all capital letters, February is in all capital letters, and there's a background that's a little bit lighter than there was in Chapter 4. So basically what you're going to be doing in the H2 definition in step 10 of your book is you're going to basically just take that definition and just completely rewrite it. So just take this stuff out and basically just rewrite, basically just copy the contents in step 10 in your book in that place. All right? Again, thank you for your patience as I get through this. We're almost through the CSS part, and that's the hardest part of this assignment. You'll also notice something else going with step 11. You'll also notice something else that's happening. Notice how in chapter 4, I'll do this with blue. Notice how in chapter 4, how the words sort of floated at the bottom of the picture, and in the chapter 6 layout, it's almost like the text wraps a little bit higher beside the picture. Hopefully you're noticing the difference between these two pictures and, of course, the one with Greg, the guy, as well as the girl, Melanie, right here. This is what's happening in step 11. So we're going to do a brand new class right here that floats the picture to the left. And instead of having this space being very small between the picture and the text, you'll notice that there's some space. Follow my arrow. You'll notice there's some space. They call it standoff in journalism, between the picture, the image, and the text. And that's what we're going to do in creating this new class for step 12. The new class for step 12 is going to be called Float Left. Now, we did one earlier, I think, that was called, I want to see if I can refresh my own memory right here. I thought we had one. No, we had a float definition in the middle of it. We didn't have an actual float class in here. We're going to actually create a new float class. And again, it doesn't matter where it is. It's just up to you as to where you want to put it. So it's going to be a new class. And it said class, not ID, so I made a mistake there. In step 11, I'm going to put a class, period, not pound symbol, called Float Left. All right? And that's going to cause the picture to float to the left, and we're going to have some space between the picture and the text. We're putting two definitions in there. It says to put in, we want to, let me make sure I get this exactly right. This is called float left, and we're going to have 20 pixels of right padding, 20 pixels of bottom padding. So we want to make sure that the picture itself floats to the left, so I want to put that in there. And it mentions that I want to use right padding and bottom padding. And since I'm not using all four numbers this time, as I did earlier, I'm going to have something called padding right and padding bottom. Sorry about my left-handed writing. And it says it wants 20 pixels of each, so we'll put 20 px in each situation. Of course, we want to have the little braces that surround all three of these properties. Finally, the next thing we'll be doing in step 12 is create a new class called Clear Left. Remember that when we have this floating business going on, everything else will float, so we have to have a way to cancel out the floating, because all we want to float are the pictures. So we're going to have to put a new class in there. The wrapper class is already there from the last instance, so I'm going to just find this a little space area right here where I can put in the step 13 Clear Left class. And I do that by, and it says call it a class. A class, of course, has a period instead of a pound symbol. So it's period, Clear Left. This is actually in your textbook on page 232. We'll have one called Clear Left. Very short definition inside the little curly braces, and it's going to be clear, colon, left. We're kind of undoing the float, so to speak. And then what you want to do, and you may want to do it more often than I'm doing it here, you want to save this CSS file so that it's updated. Make sure you're very accurate with your typing and in my case my writing, so it all works out. And once you've done this, the worst part actually is over, or the busiest part. I shouldn't say worse as an instructor. The busiest part is out of the way. This is your CSS file right here. And then all you have to do when you get into your main pages, let me get past these. My computer's being a little sluggish today. Of course, when I'm making a video, it's got to be difficult. Naturally, Murphy's Law has got to kick in. And you guys, I hope have learned to be very patient with me right now because there are no videos out there to help you with this, so I'm it. Sorry, you're stuck with me. All right, we're ready now for the home page. The home page is the one they call index. So when they're referring in the book to the home page, which is task 3 in the book, they're referring to this guy right here, index. All you're basically having to do is to take just a few little changes, not nearly as many changes as you might think have to happen. In task 3, step 1, configure the header area. Assign the H1 element to the header ID. And if you remember earlier, we've done a lot of CSS lately, but we defined something up here, there it is, called header. All we have to do now to get that background color and all that stuff going on, all I have to do now is to hop on down here to the index page, and here it is. And right down here where it says H1, hopefully you can see this, I've got the little space right there. In order to configure it specifically the way it should be, all I have to do is put in, since it's an ID with the pound symbol, I simply put ID equals, let me use a different color so it doesn't become confusing with all this red and blue. I'll use green. In fact, I'll use black. That might stand out better. ID equals header in quotation marks, and that's all inside that H1 tag. That just configures it specifically the way it should be. Okay? To configure the left column, remember that we had the navigation links. Remember now that we are going to take this navigation area, which is this stuff right here. We're going to take that navigation area and we're going to make sure it gets configured correctly. And that's already done with the div. That definition in the CSS style will take care of it. But basically, what we just need to do right here is to take out, we don't need the non-breaking spaces anymore because the words are not across the screen. The words are vertical on the screen. So all we have to do is just take that out. Now, because we're making this an unordered list, what I have to do is to modify this. So what I've got to do with this navigation list is not only take care of this part. Again, let me get some spacing here so it makes this a little bit easier to read. We've got to make this a list as well because we have an unordered list there. And that's what's being talked about in step 2. It says remove any NBSP non-breaking spaces that may be present. Code an unordered list to organize the navigation hyperlinks. Each hyperlink should be contained within L1 tags. Remember that when you do a list, you start that list out with a UL tag, and you have a closing UL tag like that. That gives you the list. Now, to get each individual component of the list, you got to have an LI in the front all the way down, and a closing LI for each item in the list. Hopefully, you remember this from one of your previous assignments. You want to make sure that that picture floats to the right. And now, I'm not talking about the Java logo. This guy right here is the logo at the top. What I'm talking about with step number 3 on page 263 is the winding road picture. That's the one that's right here. Remember, we want that to align. We don't want the align right anymore. We want it to float automatically. So what basically we have to do is to take this guy right here that says align right. Sorry about that. Let me click this so it's not so nasty looking. I want to take that out. And I need to put in the class that goes with it. So instead of putting that, we're going to be putting class. Sorry. Again, this is what happens with my computer when it fights me. Class equals and you want to put float right. It tells you exactly what to do in the book. You're basically taking this out and putting this class definition in its place. And that's all you have to do to the index page. Alright, hopefully that's helping you out. Pause the video if you need to. When you get down here to the menu page, and menu in this case is menu of coffees that the coffee house is offering. This is task number 4 in your book. You're basically doing the very same thing you did before. You want to take this header, this H1, and put the header in there. Now this is not an exact writing here. You know what to do from the other page. You basically want to configure that again. You want to go in, and I'm going to make this a little bit cleaner so that it's easier to see, because again, if you're very visual, this may be a little hard to see. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. You want to make sure, what I'm doing right here is I'm taking the navigation list and making it just a little bit cleaner looking so you can see what I'm talking about. You want to do the same thing to this page that you did, that you did to the index page, and you want to make sure that, and I'm typing and talking at the same time, which is not one of my talents, you want to make sure that you take care of this guy as well. Remember, you got to put in the UL and the LIs and all that good stuff, so be sure you take care of that part. And be sure that all that's taken care of. When you get to the music page, you want to go into the music page. Again, guess what? You want to take care of this guy and be sure you put the header ID in there. Now, I didn't say replace the word H1 with the word header. Don't take me literally. You know what to do if you'll read this carefully. You want to be sure that you put these UL and LI businesses right here. And the next thing you need to do is to work on this configuration. Remember the January, remember I told you about this section that talked about the January Melanie Morris is playing, and then in February Tahoe Greg is playing. Remember we made some changes so that the background and the upper and lowercase letters are working out. You want to make sure those images float. What you want to make sure you do right there is when you get to the music section, you want to be sure, because the way that the capital letters for January and the capital letters for February and all that will be taken care of. Remember that we've taken the H2 definition. I'm going to go back up here, and again, I hope I'm not confusing you a lot. Sometimes it happens. Some people just get confused in general because they get confused, and some people will read and reread video and replay videos to get them to work. But if you remember, and again, thank you as this page loads, sometimes it's a little bit slow. The internet is very sluggish here at the college today, so it's being a little difficult for me to go through. But I just wanted to show you something. The reason I'm talking is so you won't think that the video has gone bad on you. But if you remember, we redefined, here we go, we redefined the H2 definition in this CSS. So all that stuff's going to change automatically, where the capital letters and the background concern, that all will be taken care of in the music page just because we've redefined or recopied the H2 definition. So let me go back to the music page, excuse me. And the only thing we have to do differently here, because the thumbnail, what we have to do with both of these, remember that we want to make the thumbnail image float. If you recall, this was a thumbnail picture of Greg and a thumbnail picture of Melanie. I said these backwards. You want to make sure that inside this definition somewhere, wherever you want to put it, it's up to you, you want to be sure you put in class equals float left. That's what they're talking about in the instruction in task 5. Configure the thumbnail images to float left. Add class equals float left to the image tag. You want to put this both in that definition for the picture and also in this one. It will be in 2 different places. And it says in the final step 2 to add a blank line above the closing div tag for the content ID. Now again, remember, just to help you out here, and I'm going to do some erasing temporarily so that I don't have too much clutter on the screen. A lot of times too much clutter means too much confusion. If you remember, the content div, which defines all the content, is right here. And we need to put something in, because once those images start floating to the left, it'll try to float everything to the left. So what we have to do here in order to keep that from happening, inside the closing tab for div, right in here, I'm going to show this to you, right in here, in this area, we've got to put in a line break that clears out the floating. We can do that very easily. It was in your book, and I could cite, if I remember where it is, I can actually cite a page number for this. I have to refresh my memory. I may not remember it, and I don't want to make this video eternally long by continually having to stall to look for references here. If I can't find it immediately, I will just tell you what it is. It was in the book. It is in the book. I just have to locate it. This book is new this semester, this edition, and so I'm not as familiar with it as I will be the next semester. But we can do the clearing with a break, and looking to see where that clear information is. I know it's here because there's a question about it on your sheets, and I'm not seeing it right off the bat. Anyway, it's in your book. I'll go ahead and just tell you what it is. You're actually are going to insert a line break. It's going to be called, you've seen this before, it's BR for break. And you'll just simply put class equals clear. And that's inserted right here between the closing p tag and the closing div tag. And again, be sure that you save all your pages, put them in a zip folder, and hopefully this will help you get case study 6 taken care of. If you have any additional questions, please contact me.